All right, we will call the meeting to order. Jen, will you take roll, please?
Commissioner Corbin? Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Waldner?
Here.
Commissioner Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Lindsay?
Here. You have attached the minutes of the October 27th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of October 27th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to remove under new business number 3, the purchase of the all-wheel drive Dodge Charger. And I'm not ready to discuss it yet. Some other developments have come up and I want to look into it further, so.
Okay. Okay. Now, do we have a motion to amend the minutes? Or the agenda, excuse me, the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Hey, under appearances, I see Julie Gross is here from the Lake Area Improvement Corporation for an update.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I ran out to the office because I was going to bring a big picture of the spec building and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm just going to give my quarterly update,
Mhm.
and I was here in July, so I'm just going to kind of talk about what's happened from July till now. As you know, the county passed a TIF for additional housing, and thank you for your role in that. As you can see, the trailers are all gone, and they're kind of just in a holding pattern. I don't know if that'll start happening this fall, probably not. It might be spring now.
The concrete guys are kind of trying to delay it a little.
Our contractors are very busy.
Mhm.
The Lake Area Townhomes, the construction is completed on them. If you haven't went by those, they look great over there. We own 311 South Union where Powder Specialties is at, and we just sold that building. The Powder Specialties will be in the back half, and they're renting the front for offices, so we sold that to Dave and Paul and Theodore. So we no longer own that. Dustin Williams had a great idea to have a plant manager meeting, and so we had our first plant manager meeting. I just kind of assisted because it was his idea, and they had great dialogue. We did a survey on what would be something that they want to hear from, going forward. But it was really good because there's a lot of it was the plant managers and the other people, and I know them, and they all know me, but they don't know each other because they've had some turnover. So it was really a good dialogue at that meeting.
You said that was from all the industries in Madison came together?
Yeah,
Cool.
over at Gale. We invited them all,
Yeah.
they didn't all come.
Sure.
Yeah, it was good. And so we had some ideas going forward on some topics, and so maybe every 2 or 3 months, they hope to get together. And then along with the chamber, we coordinated the second subsequent manufacturing week. Had 5 tours, and then we had a Pride and Motorboat showcase. I know some of you were part of that. It really opened the eyes, to the public and to other manufacturers of what else is being done, because you would see that up at the Playhouse, the different people that own manufactured plants or are plant managers going to the other places because they don't know what the other plants do. So it was a great dialogue happening there too. I've been visiting manufacturers. Businesses are all very strong. We need more people, so if you have any great ideas on how to bring more people to our community to work, we definitely need more people. It was in the paper that we are participating in a loan for the theater, which should be, the theater will open, I don't know what its date is, but it will be sometime in November. Mid to towards the end of November, which is a positive step for our community. We've been answering RFIs when we can. Rick Nybert, who works for the city, I brought him in on one because it had to do a lot with water, and I didn't want to give out the wrong information, so we brought him in on that portion of the meeting, so that was great, and for Fred, just, let him come to that meeting, so I'm not afraid to pull anybody in on a meeting when it's stuff that I don't know. Integra, construction is well underway. I would assume it would be complete this month. I don't know if you saw the paper, but the Sioux Falls Business Journal late this afternoon, announced that Raven bought Integra. So, did not know that until just this afternoon, so anyway, hopefully that'll be a positive move. They bought all three plants, so here in Brandon and in Midland, Texas, so that's just very neat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It was seriously just
Yes.
very late, and they haven't, and I talked to them, they said, well, we couldn't tell you. Well, of course they couldn't tell you.
Right.
Anyway, that's very new news. The land in front of G.A. Murdoch, out in the industrial park, Superior Homes owns that, and if you've seen some dirt being moved lately, they are in the process of getting that all ready to put display homes there. And so that should be completed pretty soon, they'll be moving some homes there. Larson Doors owns that, owns Superior Homes, and so that will be done very soon.
They gonna pave it or gravel it, or?
They're graveling.
Probably
They're
gravel.
graveling right now, hopefully the sales office at some point, they're doing it in a couple different phases.
Oh, okay.
So, Global Palmer, at the beginning, I haven't asked them lately, but at the beginning of October, they had about half of their workforce here. So they're continuing to move their workforce here, the offices, the trim line, machine shop, they're all here. They just need to get all the presses here, so I would say, I hate to give a date because every time I say it, it's not correct, but soon everything should be here. Our spec building is underway. We do not, as you know, have an existing spec building. When our RFI comes out, there's 3 boxes that they can check. It's willing to build, lease, or purchase. Well, if they check, if the potential, the client checks, lease or purchase, we can't answer that RFI because we do not have a building. So I've just answered 2 recently with a building, so we'll see what happens. But it should be done about May, in that May timeframe, May 2015. It's 20,000 square feet. I apologize, I don't have a picture of it for you, but it's 20,000 square feet. We're setting it up so it can be split in half with a wall in the middle, so 2 at 10,000, so we could have 2 entities in there. And actually, both of them that I answered needed about 8,000 to 10,000 square feet, so, we'll see where that goes, but, we're excited about that, get that done. In the industrial park, we're also hoping to fill the wetlands, I'm always looking for filter, so if anybody has any filter, let me know. There's a drainage ditch out there that might need to be moved, and I'm working with Reineke on getting going on that. US Salt, they are behind schedule due to flooding this summer, and he's had some turnover in Minneapolis, but I did talk to him today, and he's got rail cars scheduled to come here in December and January, so he needs to get his pit done pretty soon, so that should be up and going. As you recall, we did our Main Street group. We sent Cecilia Whitmire to Rapid City, actually Thursday and Friday, to a Main Street summit. And so we're excited to hear what she all learned. She was learning about grants, and South Dakota is thinking about joining the Main Street USA program, and so she was going to learn about that. So we'll be getting a report on that soon from Cecilia. Just continuing to work with prospects, potential loans. I have a prospect that I met last December, and we're going to be meeting with them in 2 weeks again. So they've narrowed it down from 15 companies. They keep narrowing down there to 15 towns. They keep narrowing it down. So we're still in the running. So we'll be meeting with them soon. And I just appreciate your support and thank the mayor for being on our board.
Very good.
Questions?
Very good. Questions?
Appreciate the update.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can always call me if you have any questions.
Yes. Very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, number 2, acknowledge the September investment report, gross salaries, and bills for ratification.
Questions?
I think so. Seemed pretty straightforward. I'll
Do we
make
have-
a motion that we acknowledge the September investment report, gross salaries, and bills for ratification.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Acknowledge the Sidewalk Committee recommendations for 2015 assessments. Chad, do you want to add anything to that?
I can say a few
Thanks,
words,
Julie.
if that's all right. Thank you. Basically included in the agenda packet are a couple different sets of minutes from the Sidewalk Committee where they discussed, as has been customary for the last 5 to 10 years, areas where they would like to recommend to the City Commission for putting in new sidewalks. They met on October 8th and October 21st. They had recommended 3 different locations with what I would call a normal process of where they would select a route, and then along that route, they would, the typical process has been to put in the ADA ramps on that route. That's 11th Street North, generally speaking, that's north of the school there. 5th Street Northwest, that would be continuing what was done on 5th Street this year, basically, from Union Avenue going to the west, and then Center Street from approximately Washington to Division Avenues. Those were some of the 3 main areas they selected after reviewing a couple others. There's about 31 properties, I estimate at this time, that would be part of that. But then they also looked at a new approach. In some ways it's new, but it was discussed back in the 1996 when the idea of putting in sidewalks were prioritized in the comprehensive plan at that time, and that was, generally speaking, where in that it recommended having sidewalks installed in close proximity to schools, starting with what was referred to in that document as a priority 1, which is all properties within a 2-block radius of schools, and then so on. There was a priority 2 and a priority 3, but the committee has never really adopted that process of approaching it from an area standpoint, if you will. It's always been selecting a route. Now, albeit, with many of these routes, they have been nearby and went by schools. But one thing that they had also recommended was to look at this priority 1 area just within 1 block of all the schools. We've done some preliminary research on that, and there would be about 22 properties affected with that. You may notice in this, I should say that this wouldn't necessarily include the completion of all ramps in those areas. As you're pretty well aware, an intersection altogether, all the corners could range in cost from $4,000 to $15,000 just to do one intersection, depending on what ramps are there and such, converting them and or installing them so that they're fully ADA accessible. What the committee wanted to do, and I'm just trying to summarize, they had pretty good minutes that they had approved and considered here, but what they want to do is try to continue to expedite the process of installing those and sidewalks near schools, and not necessarily accomplishing all the ADA ramps at this time, knowing that there's different opportunities that will be coming forth that they can subsequently have an opportunity to repair the ramps, which would be through resurfacing projects. The federal laws, as we've been advised by some of the highway personnel, are that when we have a resurfacing project, we're supposed to improve the ADA ramps. That might be an opportunity to do that. Another opportunity would be if they would use their traditional approach of the route selection, I'll call it. That would also be a time when those ramps would be installed. But for this part of their recommendation, it's not including necessarily all the ADA ramps. There will not be any sidewalks that end with no access to the street. That was one priority. We didn't want to have a sidewalk to nowhere. It may be an access that has curbside only in one direction, but there will be none that will be left with no access to the street. That's one thing. And basically this, I'll call it a policy, and I use that loosely. It's that indented paragraph in the October 21st minutes. You can see sort of how this would be approached, and I anticipate that they may continue to proceed with this going forward, unless there's negative feedback from you or they have a different idea next year. So therefore, to summarize again, there were 3 routes selected: 11th Street North, 5th Street Northwest, and Center Street East. And then the school priority number 1 within 1 block. Those were their 3 recommendations. I've talked enough. I guess I can entertain any questions to try to explain this further. I know Mayor Lindsay was at the meeting, and Sidewalk Liaison Corbin was at the meeting. He called me later today and was comfortable with these recommendations as well. But that's what I would submit for this item at this time. And from here forward, what would happen is if you would usually take up these recommendations, and then you would accept them and direct my office to prepare some resolutions in which we would look up the properties. Again, I mentioned there was about 53. We would have to pull the deeds and verify the legal descriptions and incorporate them into a draft resolution of necessity. And then the process has been here in Madison to, the commission would subsequently acknowledge them, and then we would set a date of hearing, and all the property owners would have an opportunity to come and talk to you. And then at that meeting or a subsequent meeting, you would consider those resolutions and make them final, and i.e. binding at that time. So that's kind of the process that has taken place after this particular meeting in the past, 7, 8 years or so.
And I was at the meeting, so my questions have been answered, so.
I don't really have any questions other than, after reviewing their minutes and stuff, you can tell that, that committee really looks at a lot of different options and a lot of different things, so.
They really do.
And even trying to, what do they call it, the kind of the gaps,
Mhm.
trying to clear up some of that too, I thought was pretty good that they're taking a look at that. But, so yeah,
Mhm.
I have no further questions.
Anyone else?
I'd move that we acknowledge the Sidewalk Committee recommendations for 2015 assessment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no old business, we move on to new business. Number 1, authorize the mayor to sign the initial project application for the State Infrastructure Bank. And I'll ask Chad to brief people on that.
Yes, thank you. I believe included in the agenda packet, yes, is an application for utilization of what's referred to as the State Infrastructure Bank. These would be dollars. This is fairly new. I haven't had to participate in this before, so I brought in David to look at this, and Jen a little bit and such. But basically what we're doing is making an application to the state DOT to get a loan to complete the 4th Street Southeast project in 2015. The loan would be paid back with our future federal dollars that come in through the STP funds. And so those would not accumulate as they do and are made available for future projects. So they would essentially go to pay back this loan. My understanding is it's a 0 interest loan, and it would, if the bids come in how they estimate, the DOT helped determine these numbers with their estimating procedures and such. But it would use our 2016 STP funds and a portion of the 2017 STP funds to complete this project. And also I wanted to point out there would be a subsequent agreement for this before you, where you would get the final approval of this, basically, of this loan agreement. So this right now is just authorizing the mayor to sign the application. The agreement would likely not come until the bids were received and we know exact dollar amounts that we'll be needing to utilize there. So
And the nice thing about going at it, going through the SIB is our local taxpayers don't have to come up with the money to finish the project. It allows us to use the SDP funds that are for the project in 2016 and allows us then to apply the project monies for 2017 to finish paying for the project. So that way, the entire street gets completed, and we don't have to raise local dollars to do that.
And this is for the, thank you, Your Honor. And this is for the street and the storm sewer and the sidewalk portion. We are setting aside funds, as we had planned for this project for years, for the water and the sewer main portions. So this has nothing to do with, our local funds for those portions. And those will, but that is exactly correct, what you'd said, that we won't have to come up with any local funds for the street portion. We're getting it from these future SDP funds.
Other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the initial project application for the State Infrastructure Bank, SD DOT project P6312-18, PCN 03DL, and as we refer to the 4th Street Southeast project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consider the LED lighting for 2016 on the Highway 34 reconstruction project. Again, I'll ask Chad if you have comments you want to add to this.
Yes. Thank you, Your Honor. This is the continuation of what was discussed a couple weeks ago when the commission approved authorizing the DOT's consultant that the city would pay the cost for them to analyze the cost that would be due to the city if the city would choose to seek to put LED lights on the 2nd Street DOT reconstruction project. And so then this analysis was performed and reported to us, that what's included in the packet as a memo, and it's pretty thorough, but I think it's relatively easy to read. Basically, there was some analysis of the cost of the traditional lighting system that the state would install, and then also 2 comparisons to LED lighting systems with 2 different products, and there was a comparison made for those to determine, among other things, the upcharge, that upfront upcharge for materials only that the city would have to pay. And that is in Exhibit 2. It's about $12,500 would be for these particular products that have been identified. This Navion 6-module LED light, and that's in addition to that's over and above the high-pressure sodium cost. So what would eventually have to happen is the city would have to agree. I believe the state, it indicated they'll use this number. The city would have to agree via an agreement, a subsequent agreement, to pay this cost, the $12,500. As you're aware, a couple weeks ago, you had already committed to pay the cost to complete the analysis of $6,500, up to $6,500. We're hoping, the DOT hasn't committed to us, but we're hoping that's an itemized cost that we can just pay the actual cost realized by their consultant, and not just a lump sum. So if it only cost them $4,000 to do this report, then we just pay that. That's yet to be determined. But with the $12,500, if you look on Exhibit 3 in the agenda packet, it shows the payback period. That's another piece of information that Dennis Poppin and myself and Jeff Heinemeyer talked about this a little bit, and Jen. It shows a chart of the payback period, and it's estimated that the $12,500 would be paid back in about 7.2 years. The extra cost, the $12,500, in energy savings and savings on maintenance equipment, replacing of the heads and such like that, that Dennis's crews would do. Not included in that 7.2-year payback is the original 6,500 that I just talked about, nor is it included an estimate that the DOT's consultant provided for any redesign costs to the DOT, because they had indicated we'd have to pay that as well. Initially, that's estimated to be $5,000. That's what their consultant told them. And so that would also be something that the city would have to pay as well. Again, we had also asked that that be itemized, so if it's something less, we can pay that. The consultant said they'd do it. I haven't confirmed with the DOT if they'll allow us to use that itemized and actual costs yet. But if, for conversation, even if you add in the 11.5, which is the 6,500 and the 5,000, and you add that to the 12.5, if you look at Exhibit 3, it would my estimation is, just looking at this simple chart, it would add, make the payback to about 10 years before those lights would be paid off. So what's needed today from the commission, the DOT, as I mentioned, this will all be memorialized or documented in a subsequent agreement, but what the DOT has said, they simply need a go-ahead, email even, just saying, yes, the commission has agreed, much like the 6,500 has agreed to proceed. They would like to go with the LED lights. They agreed to pay up to 6,500 previously, up to 5,000 for the redesign, and then we'd pay the 12.5 for the extra costs. So that's what we'd be looking at from you today. And then I would subsequently let the DOT know that, and then we would all anticipate seeing that incorporated into an agreement, a subsequent agreement that covers a multitude of different topics, including this. So I'd submit that at this time and be happy to try to answer any questions. Or Dennis, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered it good.
Okay.
Dennis, your opinion, better lights?
It's, I think you're gonna see in the next couple of years, like everybody
Okay.
going to it,
Yeah.
but it just seems like the perfect time to do it, really.
Especially since we don't have to pay for the whole thing.
Right.
We just paying, they're gonna put in the sodium lights and pay for that. We only have to pay the cost difference of switching it to LED. So, I've read through all of this and that, and there is not a cheaper way of doing it or a cheaper time.
Oh,
And the benefit is the long term.
right.
Not only is it, on the lights, but it's on the labor and everything else and that goes along with it, so.
Agreed. I guess I will direct Chad, or make a motion that we direct Chad to send the email to DOT as necessary for the LED lighting, so that we pay the difference, 12,506, or whatever that difference ends up being, for the 2016 Highway 34 reconstruction project.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4 is personnel. You have some personnel adjustments that are attached.
Make a motion to approve the personnel as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And under announcements and other business, I'm just going to mention that, for the benefit of the people that are here, and that the restricted use site, and that we did lease the Packer for another month. And they say typically in that they're very difficult and hard to ride in and very rough riding. But because the restricted use site has not been compacted since its inception and that out there, it actually rides like a Cadillac going down the freeway. It is very comfortable to ride in because the restricted use site is very soft. But what I've seen when we were out there, the question was brought last week that you can't break concrete. Well, you can break concrete. We picked some concrete pieces out there and we drove the Packer over it, and it actually busted them up and that so that they would fit down in amongst themselves. And so as the Packer is moving back and forth out there and pulverizing the surface, then we're moving that surface to a different area, compacting it tighter and getting deeper into the material that's out there. But because it hasn't been compacted in that, it does ride really nice and smooth. So that just kind of is an update. If somebody has a question, I'll be happy to answer it. Otherwise, I will acknowledge or ask if we want to adjourn or if we want to just stay.
We're ready to go for adjournment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, root on the Bulldogs tonight.
Chad, do you want any of these maps back?